Hey, everybody, welcome back to Dental Unfiltered. I'm Matt Brown, your normal host. And today I have two awesome guests. I have Dallin and Ken Kaufman. They are accountants in dentistry. And what I'll tell you is, I go to events and I probably get approached by an accountant every single event. There's so many, the sea of accountants in dental is probably as big or bigger as the sea of marketers in dental. And I think just like marketers in dental, it's like 90% crap and 10% good. And I wanted to bring both of them on because we had a really good conversation at the Intellicon event for Dental Intel. Um, and these guys were there because they're data driven and they're all about clear transparency. And when we were talking, we were having a conversation, and I was, there's a lot of regurgitated crap that is just said in dental when it comes to accounting. And both of them were talking about, like, yeah, well, there's a lot of like blanket statements that don't make sense that just get said. And they kind of really, from a accounting point of view, kind of really fit the culture of Dental Unfiltered. And just like, they want to be truthful about everything. So, first, why don't the two of you say a little bit about yourselves and your background? And then the episode, guys, is the top myths, the top three myths of dental accounting. And I'm going to kind of prompt it, and it's going to be an awesome conversation. So, why don't the two of you go ahead and just intro yourselves a little bit, and we'll get right into this.
Yeah, I'll start off. So I've been working in dental since I was 17 years old. Something real quick about Ken and I. This is a father-son duo. Ken's been in dental for longer than myself, but I got my start in dental when I was 17 years old. And Ken came home one day. He was working for a DSO at the time, based out of Texas, about 25 locations or so. Came home and said, "Hey, Dallin, we had a receptionist quit today. Congratulations, you start on Monday." So I began receptioning and got bored of that really, really quick, and eventually transitioned to the IT team for that DSO. Learned technology alongside of dental and spent a good chunk of my time. It was probably where I had the most fun doing business intelligence and analytics for them. So building dashboards, building web apps, getting data from practice management softwares, so that everyone in the company knew what was going on at the practice level.
All right, and I'm Ken Kaufman. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here, Matt. Quick background on me: my first foray into dental was in 2006. I've been here basically ever since. I ran the Nomad business and sold that to Danaher, right up there on the shelf. I also was the CFO for a 75 location DSO, and then for another DSO that was approaching 400 million in annual revenue. And since then, decided to break off, do my own thing, partner up with Dallin, and we're having some fun thinking about all of the challenges from a financial standpoint that exist in dentistry.
Yeah, it's funny, Don. You say that you started at the front desk, and I think that everyone who becomes a leader in dentistry should work the front desk at some point, because that job sucks. And everyone thinks the front desk girl just answers phones, or the front desk person, and they're like the air traffic controllers and catch all for everything in dental no one wants to do. And they have two screens in front of them with 10 tabs open, and it's just like an air traffic controller. So I think, like, from my point of view as a leader in dental, I think you probably started out in the best place. So really exciting. So both you guys are a father-son duo, which I worked with my father when he had his business, and we just didn't get along. So the fact you guys are excited and having fun, it's really impressive. Ken, with your background of like a $400 million revenue DSO and another DSO, I think one thing that can be said for sure about your brain is, like, an accountant that's handling 15 practices, probably you learn more about the accounting for dental in a month than that guy will in a career. If you're the CFO and head numbers guy for a $400 million revenue group, as far as volume of information consumed and problems caused by other people and dentists doing stupid things, I think maybe in the accounting side, there's few people industry wide that know more than you. Because I didn't know that about you till you just said it. That's a gigantic amount of numbers moving, a $400 million group. And how many dentists were in that you had to deal with?
Yeah, hundreds.
hundreds. Were they
Yep.
just before we get into the myths part? Were all of them partial owners of these practices?
No, for the most part, the model in that organization was not to
Okay.
have associates with equity. It was
Okay.
primarily yeah, you got it.
Yeah, cool. So okay, so you had some uniformity there. Now the other group that you worked with, that was the other DSO, did they have associate ownership?
Yes, we had
Okay,
a really strong JV partner model, and
cool.
we encourage dentists. Although, when a dentist comes out of school, one of their challenges is they generally don't have much business education and experience,
Zero.
and so we would take some time and really train them up so they could understand why when we opened up a de novo that they were going to be working in that they weren't getting distributions day one. We had to help them understand the the time that it takes and to ultimately get to profitability and cash flow positive and all those kind of things. So, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. We got to help a lot of dentists have ownership.
Cool. So you have one scenario where you're dealing with a tremendous amount of numbers. Then you have another scenario where you're dealing with a tremendous amount of owners. And I feel like maybe the tremendous amount of owners might have been harder to deal with than a uniform amount of tremendous amount of numbers. Just my opinion being in dental, but I don't know, but I feel like it would be.
I can give you just one little data point on this. So, because of the proliferation of entities and things that we do in dental, as DSOs are growing, what I had one entity that had 150 bank accounts, and those had to all get reconciled every month. And that was just one. That was just one out of all of the legal entities that existed. So just to give you a little bit of a flavor of what that complexity was like.
Yeah, you're a big brain. So that's awesome. And Dallin, you're going to learn a lot, obviously, from your father being next to him because he's seen stuff. So, anyway, so guys, we wanted to talk about the top like 3 or 4 myths in dentistry for accounting. I think dentists do some things with some flaws. I think one is they hire subject matter experts. They put 100% trust and like total like freedom and like, well, this is your title. So obviously I don't have to worry about that. And we're going to get into that a little bit. And I think that leads to all these myths because they just blindly trust these individuals. And I think you have to be with any subject matter expert you work with in the industry, you have to be in the driver's seat. Like, like a real good example of this is people hire office managers, and they're in two spirits, in my opinion. One is I hire them to shield me from all that stuff and never have to deal with it. The other is I hire them to execute how I want that done. They're the tool of execution. And I have a feeling when we get into this, that is going to be a big part, that cultural problem. That exists, I believe, in like all support services in dentistry, that culture is a problem. So the first one I always hear about is what accounting style, accrual, not accrual. Like what should you be doing? And that's a big decision because I think that's the fundamental decision that kind of ends up dictating the whole accounting style and process. So tell me, like, unravel the myths about picking your accounting style when it comes to that.
One of the greatest myths is that accrual accounting just needs to be dismissed. It's too hard, or maybe it might cost some money or something like that. But there's just a dismissal that it should exist. And the interesting thing here, Matt, is that every other industry on planet Earth uses accrual accounting. Why? Because it's the most accurate way. Yeah. Oh, so your business is run that way too. And there are so many groups and single practices and things where they're just not getting the right information from their cash basis accounting. Accrual it is the superior way to run a business, period.
And if I could add on to that, maybe for listeners that aren't as familiar with what the specific difference between accrual-based accounting or cash-based accounting is, accrual accounting is the only way that you are going to understand the profitability of your business. And the reason is because accrual thinks about transactions on the date of service rather than on the date of payment. So if you think about your average dental office, you're buying a whole bunch of supplies in January. and then using them across January and February and March. And then let's say you do a procedure in January, but then you bill insurance and you're not actually paid for it until February. If you're looking just at payments as they're going in and out, you see a huge loss in January and then a huge uptick in February. And you're like, okay, why did we do so bad in January? Why did we do so good in February? When the reality is you did the exact same in January and February. And so it unlocks that key to the profitability KPI because it lines up all of those expenses with the services that they're associated with. So you can actually see how good your practice is doing.
It's so funny you talk about that because we talk about it a little bit at Energize. We have like accrual accounting uh, based on marketing and the return on investment, basically. So it's like we track. So if somebody gets a lead in January for short, make it short because I have a question for you guys, and then they do services over so many months, we have to contribute it back to the investment month, and we have to watch actual days of service, right? And it's a similar scenario. So, you know, with that being said, do you believe that the reason why this isn't used, and this is my gut, so you guys can tell me, Matt, you're full of it. There's another reason. I feel like in dental, a lot of service providers do cookie cutter rinse and repeat services so they can handle volume and not really do a lot of work, or like not be very loyal to the actual results of the practice or be loyal to the needs, right? Do you feel like the reason why people are avoiding this as a service provider is because of that, and they're being more loyal to their time usage than they are what's best for their client?
Absolutely, could not agree more. You said that perfectly, Matt.
Okay. So when this happens, like as a dentist consumer, like when I first meet with a new CPA, right? Like how am I gonna how am I gonna know that? Like what is the indicator I should be aware of that I might be going down this path with a service provider that approaches things that way?
A very
This will lead
simple,
into our next subject too that I'm
yeah.
asking about. So this is good.
It's a very simple question you can ask. You can say, how many of your clients are you maintaining accrual accounting for?
Okay.
And if they say zero or none, or yeah, we don't do that in dental, that's your sign. You need to look for
Okay.
somebody else.
Yeah. So that's kind of the indicator is like, are you doing it for anybody?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say no, let's say they said 5 out of 20, would a good follow-up question be like, how are you deciding who you do it for
A good follow up question is why aren't all of them on it? Because it
okay
is the gold standard. Period.
in business?
Yeah, in business and in dentistry, because we're business here, and sometimes we forget
Oh,
that.
yeah. So I have another question for the two of you because this is a big keyword, and then we're going to move into our next myth. Um, EBITDA is being said everywhere. I can't tell you how many T-shirts I have from like Paul Goodman and Mark Costas and stuff. It's like EBITDA and biceps and EBITDA, and then Paul's little like one that's like EBITDA something, and it's like dealing with dentist crap, right? Um, you know, is it easier because everyone's always talking about EBITDA with accrual accounting? Is it easier to truly know in a better time period or in a timely manner what EBITDA is?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll say this too about EBITDA, and it looks like maybe Dallin has something to share on here, but all EBITDA is a lazy man's shortcut to cash flow. We're not looking at profitability when we're buying or selling a dental practice. We're looking at cash flow. We're looking at, are we generating cash or are we losing cash in that business? And the valuation is 100% based on that business's ability to continue to drive that cash generation into the future. So just to be super clear about what EBITDA really is, it is a function of, I can take my profit and loss statement, move a few things around and say, here it is. But ultimately, it's about driving cash flow. And how is the business driving cash flow?
Yeah, the other thing that I'll add there is oftentimes on accrual, this is one of the benefits. Your EBITDA number comes out higher than your cash number. And the reason why is if you picture a bread and butter dentistry office, let's say normal procedures, insurance based, that's growing, your collections are always going to lag your production, right? Because you're doing so much work in January and then you always collect on it later. So if you are a growing, improving, getting better practice, If you're looking at February's numbers, you're looking at the you from 2 months ago or 3 months ago. You're already better than that. And then what you're doing right now is going to show up in your P&L 2 months from now or 3 months from now, when hopefully you're even better than that. And so looking at accrual, that accuracy services within the same month that they're performed, your EBITDA number is often a little bit higher. And in a world where that's how a business is evaluated at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or higher times EBITDA, that can be a big, big deal for a practice.
Listening to what you talk about this, so I think we could assume the majority of dental practices are not on accrual accounting, right? What do you think? It's like 90%, some crazy number, probably, right?
I'd say for like on the DSO side, so once you're at 20 to 30 locations, all of them are going to be on accrual. So it'd be any set of practices or individual that's below that number.
Okay, so we have a marketplace right now, or an industry where the word EBITDA is thrown around every day, all day, by every single person ever. Every doc talks to his buddy and is like, my EBITDA is this, and my EBITDA is that, and my goal for EBITDA is this. And it's said all the time, but the best practice for EBITDA isn't happening at all. So we have this whole industry focused on EBITDA because that's how they're going to get their retirement payout, right? It's like that is the plan. Is I build a practice and I sell it, and I'm good. But the best practice to get to the best EBITDA that's accurate is universally not being done. So we're focusing on a target, but we're not using the best tool to hit it.
That's right. And I'll add one caveat. We tend to see when somebody's trying to sell their group of dental practices or a dental practice, they'll sometimes do a quality of earnings statement. Guess what? The purpose of the quality of earnings statement, it's to convert everything to accrual basis so that they can then maximize their valuation at transaction.
So would you not need that if you were already on accrual, or would it be easier?
And here's the thing, the longer you've been on accrual, the more credit you get for it. If you just converted last week, you're not going to get much credit for it. But if you've been using it for months and years, it actually has a compounding effect of value. You look like a good operator because that's how you're supposed to operate a business, is be on accrual basis accounting. You actually show up and they're like, wow, these guys know what they're doing. They're good operators. These guys, they're going to pay more for that business as a result.
Yeah, and I think where that matters is I can't tell how many docs I talk to that get a private equity phone call and they start scrambling to try to pull this stuff together, and they're with their accountant, and it's a mess. And if you were on accrual accounting, it would be like, here's the stuff, go look at it, and it wouldn't need to be prepped, right? Because it would be accurate to the day of service, right?
And we have done that, like exactly what you said. That's what we've done multiple times for different groups.
Yeah, like, I mean, I know my business partner Ryan Raybold is like, he would fit right in with you guys. The guy's a super brain when it comes to finance, and like, I don't know this crap. Like, I'm like the talking head of the company. Like, I'm not very technical. And one day, a few years ago, he was like, "We're going to go to accrual accounting," and I was like, "Cool, bro." And he's like, "Do you want to know?" And I was like, "I don't. If you do, you think it's best?" He's like, "I do." I'm like, "Well, okay, we're doing it. Like, you're good at math. I'm not so much, right?" So I mean, we went a few years ago to it, and I didn't honestly. I just realized now how important it is, and I feel good about it now. So next myth we want to talk about. Okay, we alluded to this earlier about the blanket trust with service providers, and I think that I definitely see whenever it becomes financial, docs allow like an autopilot, undetailed scenario for their finances. And going back to this, docs, you have student loans, you have practice loans, you have all this stuff, and your number one asset you have is your practice. But then you're giving over total financial trust to somebody you may have never met in person, right? So going to like, oh, the CPA's got everything covered. Like, I have three letters that are my security blanket, and it's CPA. Like, it's a false security blanket, right? So tell me, as like super pro high end CPAs who have invested their whole brain in dentistry, tell me about the pitfalls of that.
This is actually, to some degree, a diagnosable disease. There's something called financial dissonance, and that is where you separate yourself from your financial performance, and you actually shy away from and pull away from taking responsibility for that part of your business. And it's a really interesting thing that happens here, Matt, because if I'm a clinician and then I become CEO, in between that mix, whether I'm the clinician or I'm the CEO in a practice or group of practices, what always ends up happening with this financial dissonance is they feel like their identity is wrapped up inside of these numbers. And so they actually pull away and they don't pay attention. So when your CPA or accountant is coming to talk to you about here's what's happening financially, you tend to tune out, you tend to say, I don't understand that. I don't get that. I don't want to be involved in that. You just go ahead and go take care of that. It is extremely dangerous. And it's it's actually a diagnosable situation for many, many practitioners.
Do you think they listen to the CPA and they just they tune out as they're going through the whole P&L and everything, and they go, can I just get to the bottom number?
Yep, absolutely. And the common situation that happens there is they say, you know what, I trust you. You're just, okay, everything looks good. I'm fine. And they don't want to have a conversation about what's happening or maybe ways to improve or maybe ways to drive more cash flow through their business. They just kind of disengage, and it's a level of dissonance that's like I said, it's diagnosable.
I would like to ask you both and hear both your answers on this. Do you think the reason why they avoid the conversations is because they don't want the other party to know how unfamiliar they are with it?
I believe that's part of it, at least part of it. Yes.
Down, is that what you think too?
Yeah, I think that with this level of disassociation, there is a sense of I'm supposed to be in charge. I'm supposed to be the boss. And so if I don't say anything, maybe they'll assume that I know what I'm talking about. So if I just nod and smile and grunt and make it seem like I'm grasping everything, then that's there. I think part of it can also come from a place, I don't know, it's delegation gone wrong. Because there's a good form of delegation where you know that something isn't your skill set, and so you give it over to someone else. I know that Ken is better at some of the specific finance things than me, and so there are some things that he takes care of, and then there are some technology related stuff that he knows I'm better at, and so we don't worry about getting into the details. But I think what the doctors miss there is that if you are the leader of the practice, and I'd argue that whether you have equity, whether you're an owner, or even whether you're an associate, if you are a dentist, you are the leader of your practice, then you have to understand what's going on with your financials. That is the ultimate scorecard for your business. That is the ultimate source of truth for what is going on. And that is never something that you can fully give over to someone else. And so I think some doctors come at it from the position of, I'm just going to save time by not investing any brain space in this and just wholly focus on other things. And that's not something that you have the liberty to do as a business owner.
Do you think they kind of just take on the clinician role 100% because it's natural, and then the business owner part comes very unnaturally, and then their lack of information and honestly, docs get pissed off, intelligence about this kind of makes them just shy away from it because I'm labeled a clinician. I am a clinician. I'm going to be a clinician. Let the business people be business people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true.
And I think that modern DSO culture feeds into that. One of the, I'll call it a myth or a lie, that some larger DSOs are feeding into the marketplace when they're trying to recruit associates is they'll tell people who are coming right out of college, all you have to do is dentistry. Yep. Because that's comforting. It's familiar. I just went to dental school and I got really comfortable and familiar with dentistry. I got really good at dentistry and I want to learn dentistry. And the whole business aspect of it, or the whole marketing aspect of it, or whatever else we want to comment on, is kind of scary. And so I'm going to let other people handle that. And I'm just going to be a doctor. And I don't think that that's a liberty that any doctor can take. If you are a dentist in a dental practice, you are seen as the leader. which means that you've got to take responsibility for some of these things. Even if you're never going to be as expert in business like the MBAs that are running things at the top, you have to understand what's going on.
And I think, though, part of that is, and we're getting to the next myth, which is what I'm really passionate about, is I think some dentists should be associates in that scenario. They should never become business owners. I think for so a lot of people, like that scenario of come work for a DSO, get 30% equity, make 350 a year, don't deal with the business stuff. I think that makes sense. I think you do need to read the P&L and get the information from the DSO so you know how your 30% is really being utilized. I had encountered a DSO where the structure was 30%, but as collections went up, this DSO owned all of the real estate and they raised rent as collections went up. And that was pretty interesting to see. And the docs would like wake up to it after a couple of years. I'm like, hey, why is my rent going up every month?
Mm-hmm.
And they're really not getting 30%,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the docs would wake up. That was a real scenario. And the docs woke up 3 years later and were like, whoa, wait a minute. And it's like, dude, you should have been looking year one. You could have left this place 6 months in. Your 30% equity isn't like you've missed out on distributions because of this rent raising crap because you didn't look at the stuff. So next one I really want to get into, and this is one, this is kind of how our relationship meeting got founded because we were at IntelliCon, which is all about data and good, clean reporting and dashboards, which at my company, we buy almost every client dental intel because we believe in it. And you guys believe in it. We're like the third largest consumer of dental intel in the country outside DSOs. And I believe in clean reporting. And what I will tell you is the PMS is rarely right. In my opinion, and I want to hear both of you talk about this, is people who are dental people make dental software and they're not business people. And the reporting doesn't always jive. And then the complication I have is we understand dental intel into the event, into the practice. And then the manager's like, oh, these numbers aren't right. I'm like, well, it's probably right. They're the $500 million reporting company. Your practice management software isn't displaying it truthfully the way you can comprehend it. So you two deal with this all day long. The PMS is not being honest. Tell me what your opinions are on this.
I'm passing this one completely to Dallin. This is his sweet spot, man.
Matt, this is my life. This is my life. Because
I've been dealing with it for like 5 years and like hundreds of practice owners.
Yep. So if you go back to that definition we gave of accrual-based accounting, we're trying to think of things on the date of service rather than on the date of payment. Now, one of the reasons why most dental practices are on cash is because it's easy. The only data that you need is what money left the bank account and what money came into the bank account. And all you have to do is hook up your bank account to QuickBooks and bing, bang, boom, you're on cash-based accounting, off to the races. If you are going to be on accrual-based accounting, you need a different source of truth so that you are understanding more than just what money did we collect, but what work are we doing each day, each month, each period. And the source of truth for that has to be the practice management software. There's nowhere else where you're logging what procedures are being done, what's the value of those procedures, what can we expect to collect on. All of that is put into the practice management software. Now, the problem comes when every PMS, they all just look at the data differently. And to what you were saying, Matt, it goes back to none of them were truly built for reporting. None of them were built for enterprise. The vast majority of the practice management softwares out there were built for a single location that honestly wasn't really looking at things at a large scale. They were looking at patient by patient, like what amount of money does this patient owe? What do we need to do next for this patient? They're way more about schedules and treatment plans, which are all good and awesome and necessary. But when you're talking about accounting, when you're talking about production and collections and like the number business side of dentistry, exactly. The practice management software just aren't built for that. And I see that all the time because I'm on the back end, like looking at the raw numbers from these databases, your Open Dental, EagleSoft, Denticon, Dentrix Ascend, all of them. And you can see how the ledgers are, they're like almost haphazard. Like some practice management softwares don't even have one place where they store the ledger. They have 9. And they're drawing from a whole bunch of different data sources, like trying to get like cobble together one source of truth. So yeah, it's just a matter of dental. They like the software is just cobbled together. It's kind of haphazard. The ledgers aren't built very well, and as a result, like when you look at it through different lens, it always appears different to different people.
There's like one simple thing that drives me bonkers about practice management softwares. And for the audience, I am in and out of all the practice management softwares, and I'm involved over at Archie. And the ledgers, you can bring in ledgers, right? How come it's so hard just to pull up a patient and see what their total revenue is from that patient? Like, why is that hard? Like, why is it when I look at Open Dental, I can't understand it. I'm like, I look at the patient ledger and I'm like, so how much money have they given us? Because there's yellow and there's green and red and there's write-offs and minuses and sometimes there's transactions that kind of show like they're there twice. But then it like why can't it just be like at the bottom, this patient has given us $4,000 over 4 years? And for some reason, and it's uniform across every practice management software. Nobody has that. And like, that's a simple thing. And if I can't understand it, because I would say I'm like way more business person than I am marketer. And like, I'm in charge, I'm the CRO, I'm the chief revenue officer over at Energize. And like, that's my world is income from sources. And I can't figure it out. The ledger sucks. And I feel like, like this is my opinion. I feel like dental people who are clinically focused, who think one patient, one time slot at a time, built a software that was honestly like trapped in the operatory. Like I feel like all practice management software is trapped inside the operatory and not the business. And I feel like that's why.
I'll add a little bit more nuance to that. I agree 100% with everything that you're saying. The other piece of it is a lot of the existing practice management softwares were created by suppliers who wanted to provide everything to any given dental office. And so they're thinking to themselves, we're already giving the materials and the tools, the supplies, everything else that the dental office needs. What else can we sell them that will make our business better? And so companies that were not software companies decided to get into building software. And as a result, we have the practice management landscape that exists today. And I'll add even this to it. Oftentimes, they would provide those practice management softwares for free. It was part of a package deal, which was if we are your one and only supplier, then we'll lump in this practice management software. And so for the longest time, the developers of the software weren't even motivated to make it good. They weren't even focused.
There's no reason for innovation.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a software that's just being provided for free as a package deal. So yeah, there's so much innovation and so much work that needs to be done in that field.
Yeah, Ken, what do you have to say about it?
The whole thing blows my mind. And I remember in the very early days of Dentrix, that like the early version, there's a guy in Alpine, Utah, who created the software that became the Dentrix version. And the whole goal when Shine bought that company was they said, if we can own the computer at the front desk, we can own that practice. That was their whole thought process and thinking. And their supplies, everything. They're like, we will own and control and be able to move, bring supplies in and all of those kind of things. And so it's a really interesting dynamic that occurred. I think from Shine's perspective, I think it was a brilliant strategy. It just unfortunately stifled innovation over a long period of time that we're still, I think there's some tech debt that we're still digging ourselves out of, to be honest.
Yeah. And to be clear here, things are getting better. Conversations like this one are happening around the industry. And every practice management software that I'm aware of is trying to level up the features that they're delivering. I've seen improvements in the ledger in pretty much every other feature People are trying to open up APIs, increase interoperability. Like, things are getting better. They're not there yet. We have a lot of catch up to do, but we are on the upward trend.
It's interesting. I knew that the suppliers all owned a PMS. I didn't think about it the way you guys just explained it, of like the PMS is really a Trojan horse to bring in salespeople and push the consumables and that kind of stuff. And it is really good I mean, I would have done it that way. I mean, that's exactly what I would have done if I owned Henry Schein, I'll be honest. But it did stifle innovation. And I really believe, and we're going to wrap this up here in a little bit, but I want to say a couple things and let you guys say a few more things before we end. I believe that this is a great time in dentistry. We're in the middle of a technology revolution. I mean, like, I came into dentistry 5 years ago, and every day I'm like, this is the coolest time to ever be in dentistry. We have scanners and printers and mills and all this stuff. And then an AI, like AI is here now. And I think past technologies got implemented and deployed very slowly. I think dental is adopting artificial intelligence faster than it adopted any other technology in history, in my with Pearl and all the other cool tech. And I'm involved in full transparency for the listeners. The company I'm going to talk about, I have equity in. I'm a special advisor to the board, so I am biased. I'm involved with Archie, this practice management software. And now, after hearing this, what I believe is unique about them coming into the marketplace is they have no other dental company behind them. It's big Silicon Valley tech. It's Facebook people and like Vesmer Capital and like gigantic Silicon Valley resources coming in. And I think that that's happening now, where it's a lot of outside resources. And I think that's going to push a lot of innovation. And I feel like these legacy companies and products we're talking about just aren't going to be able to keep up the pace of innovation. I think they're just like, oh, wait, things are changing. And then they're going to wake up and be like, what, how much changed? Well, a lot changed. What do you mean? Like, your platform called servers, they're gone. All these software is now on tablets too. Really, we have to scramble to do this, and they'll never be able to do it in a good way. And I feel like the shift is happening, which is really good for dentists, to actual PMSs that are loyal to what they need, and the UX and UI, which for our listeners is user experience, user interface. I think that's finally happening for us, which I think is a changing of the guard. So before we sign off, what else do you guys have to contribute before we sign off for the episode?
Well, I'll just say one thing that I want Dallin to just talk about, but the number of Y Combinator companies that are focusing on dental right now is really interesting, and I think Dallin could shed some light on that as well. Just to emphasize the point that you made there, Matt, about the growth of technology overall in dentistry.
Yeah, and that's a great place to wrap up, which is on a hopeful note, us looking on the bright side, which is that a lot of attention is coming to dental and a lot of money is coming to dental. I spent a couple of hours like a week ago and tried to find every Y Combinator company over the last 4 or 5 years worth of semesters that has come in. And there's been at least one every single batch, if not 2 or 3 or 4. Like, cool people that are developing cool tech with a lot of money behind them that are trying to solve problems in dental, which before has kind of just been an industry under a rock. Like, we've just been doing stuff the exact same way for a long time. And I'm not going to call out any specific names because we try really hard to be vendor agnostic. We kind of work with everyone. Doesn't matter who you have, we can help you. But the competition is changing the game for everyone, and ultimately the beneficiaries are the practices. If you get a new upstart, Silicon Valley grade practice management software that shows up on the scene, it forces everyone else to either innovate or be left behind. And ultimately the winners there are the practices, because they're getting better and better software every day, better and better tools every day, which is what they deserve, and it's what the industry is demanding.
Yeah, I'm gonna end on this for my part. There is a arms race going on around practice management softwares right now, and there are people developing nukes, and there are people that are stuck using bow and arrows. And like, it's real, and I'll say it, like, if you're a server based and you're one of the big three, and like Dentrix came out with Dentrix Ascend, okay. But like if you're not adapting to the new cloud based and you think servers are going to exist, that market's eroding. One, docs are retiring and getting out, and younger guys are buying their practices and being like, I don't want a server and I want to access my software from anywhere I am in the world if I'm on vacation, and I want to look at how my associate's doing. So cloud based is the only option. Then you have docs coming out of school who they were born in the 90s or the late 90s or early 2000s, and they're like, what is a server? I've been on the cloud my whole life. And they go buy a practice and they're like, there's wires running through the building in a box, and the box can go down, and like I have to call a person and they have to remote in or show up, and I need like a repair guy for my like software. Like it's not a refrigerator, right? And I feel like the server base aren't noticing that like they're being squeezed from two spots. Docs exiting and Docs coming in is just. I think that arms race, at least for me, is like super exciting to watch. I'm like, who's going to innovate? Who's not? Oh, look, you're a multi-billion-dollar company and you're being left behind. Like, and I think it's really exciting. And I down with your position, I imagine you do too. So, hey guys, we're gonna wrap this up. Dallin and Ken, thank you for coming on. I think these three subjects and myths are really helpful for a dentist. And just to recap for the dentist, accrual accounting apparently is the only and best option. You should look into that immediately. Call your CPA and find out why we're not on accrual, and then question them. If you're shopping for a CPA, should be the opening question. Apparently, is how many are on accrual, and if not, why? And just you should probably move on to somebody with accrual accounting because you're all focused on EBITDA, and accrual accounting is apparently the pathway to EBITDA for better accuracy and better volume. So that's the pathway for this target we're all on. Second is don't trust your accountant blindly. You wouldn't trust the babysitter without vetting them with your kids, and you're trusting your largest asset to some guy you hardly know. So that probably isn't smart either, right? And the last one we had talked about to recap was the PMS isn't always right. Question the data in the PMS, and honestly, you should be questioning the numbers that your manager gives you. So the practice management software isn't accurate. Then your manager is passing that down the road to you, and the inaccuracy is just snowballing. So, guys, both of you, thank you for coming. You guys are awesome. Guys, remember, audience, we do this for free. Me and Andrew do, and all the other hosts on the channel. Please click like, subscribe, share. Please leave a review. We do read the reviews. We love them. Also, in the link below the podcast episode is a link to Dental Unfiltered's virtual study club that has now, as of today, 450 dentists in it. And in that club, we do webinars once a month. We have webinars. This will come out in the new year. We have a webinar coming up with Laura Nelson and me about patient experience, starting with phones and ending with collections. So, guys, please click like, subscribe, follow, and please join the study club at the bottom of the chat or the bottom of the description. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, both of you, and thank you guys for listening. And have a great day.